Hi, everyone. Welcome to Azure User Group Sweden. It's Saturday again, and we're here in the new session. Hi, Håkan. Welcome.
Hello, Jonah. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. We got snow here in Sweden. How about you there in Norway?
No, so far no snow, but I guess it's just a question of time.
Yes, that's right. Now we're talking about snow, but today we're going to have a special guest that comes from the warm
Mhm.
country, tropical country. So I look forward to the hot session that we're going to have from Sweden today virtually. Yeah, so welcome everyone, and I hope that you're having a great Saturday sitting in your couch or wherever you are watching from your mobile or your computer. Thank you for joining us and spending time to learn with us today in our session. And before we start, I would like to introduce my co-community leader here, Håkan Silvernagel. He is Microsoft AI MVP in Norway, and he is a manager in AI and expert in machine learning, and has been a community leader and active in the community as a speaker and leading user groups in Norway, such as the the .NET user group in Norway, as well as the AI42 and other community events. So glad to have Håkan with me, contributing to this community.
Yeah, thank you, Jonah. And I'm also very proud to present Jonah Anderson. She's the founder of our user group, Azure User Group Sweden, and she's also an Azure MVP. She's a Microsoft certified trainer. She's also a professional speaker on many different conferences and a mentor. And in her daily life, she works as a cloud and DevOps engineer at Forefront Consulting. And she is also writing a book. What is that book going to be about, Jonah?
Yeah, it's gonna be about Azure, of course,
Oh,
for our community.
yes.
Yes, so yeah, thank you for that, Håkan, for the great introduction. Yes, so before we bring our audience and get started, I would like to remind everyone about our code of conduct. So, Azure User Group Sweden is a community that follows this conduct, and we expect everyone to be nice and friendly, listen with purpose, and be thoughtful. Be respectful to others, seek to understand and not criticize. Be curious and open about sharing your ideas in our chat and even in our after session Zoom meetings. And be inclusive and respectful in your comments and questions. And if you have questions about our code of conduct for this community, feel free to reach out to me and Håkan on LinkedIn or our channels and share it with us. Thank you. And before that, let me also share that to those that are not familiar or familiar with Azure Heroes, we also are sharing Microsoft Azure Heroes Learner Badge, digital badge today. So if you scan the QR code and claim your learner badge for this. And of course, feel free to share on your social media with our hashtag Azure Sweden or Azure Heroes and tag Azure Heroes as well. Thank you. All right. Let's introduce
Yes.
Håkan. You have the honor to introduce our special guest today. He
Yes.
is one of the trainers in the community and advocates that I also look up to.
Mhm.
I have been following his courses on LinkedIn and Pluralsight even before I I met him in person in a conference. So it's good that he is here with us today. Go ahead,
Yes.
varsågod.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think maybe before I do that, we can also mention that
Yeah,
after
yeah.
after this session, we will have something that we call a fika, which is basically an opportunity for you to meet with the speaker and ask him directly questions or have a discussion. So it's like a short 15 minutes Zoom room. So we'll share the link to that at the end of our session. So you're very welcome to join that. But now we will add Tiago here. Hello, Tiago. Welcome.
Hello. Okay. Thank you very much for the nice presentation. It's a big pleasure for me for being here with you. Great honor.
Yeah.
And
So,
I've been in Sweden a few weeks. I think it was like last week or
oh,
something like that. I was there for just a few hours. Okay, because I
Okay.
was in Copenhagen for ESPC. and I just crossed the bridge to Malmo. Okay, for some drinks with some friends. Okay, so
Yes,
Nice.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know some Swedish words?
I
Did
do
you
not.
learn some?
I do not.
Maybe you know one now or after this session. It's called
Fika.
fika. Yeah.
Fika.
That's I know. Yeah, exactly. I just learned that one. I have to confess that every time I go to Sweden, I never learn that much because everyone speaks English,
Yes.
and then that makes my life super easy. I have to confess, right? But because everyone speaks English, you just and yeah, you get the idea, right? So
Yes, that's
you end
right.
up not learning and not experiencing also the cultural that part. But yeah,
Yes, that's right. And it's also practical. If you don't need to speak Swedish, then you don't need to, especially for you're just here temporarily. So
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. If I was living
yes.
there, for sure I would learn it. But if you just go there for a week working and then you just come back and then you go back, I don't know, a few months later again, yeah.
Yes, that's
It's
right.
just
Yeah.
it's not easy. But I know some parts. I used to travel like really a lot to Greece, so I learned some basic knowledge on Greek, which is really hard for me because it's really different from Portuguese, and also different from English. So that's what I
Yes.
learned: how to ask for a coffee, how to ask a taxi driver, "Hey, look, I need to go here." Those basic things that you always need to survive, basically.
Yes. Yeah, switching back, I'm also like, I know I've been to Portugal, and the only word I know is obrigado, and I like your dessert cupcakes that you have with
Oh, the
some
custard,
cream.
the
Yeah,
custard
custard
tarts.
cake. Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
the pastéis de
Yes.
nata.
Yeah. We have people saying hi to you, everyone. Like we have Simon,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Stefan. We also have Ashish, part of our community member, saying good
Mhm.
morning, and some icons with snow,
Well,
and
no,
Mika's as well. Good day, dear
I
friends.
I
All
love I love
right.
when you guys were saying about snow and stuff like that, and I was like,
I
no,
know.
But
right now it's sunny outside, really sunny.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
it wasn't in the morning. So the morning was a little bit rainy, but now it's sunny. So
but I know sometimes snow comes even in unexpected places. So have you had snow in the past in Lisbon?
yeah, so during all my life, and I'm only like 18, okay, I'm very young,
Yes.
okay, 18 times a few, basically, only once snowed in Lisbon a few years ago. I think I was like 14, 15 years ago, and it was like it snowed. It lasts for like an hour or two, the most. I don't remember, and then was gone. It didn't stick because we are just by the sea. It's a warm country. It doesn't snow here. Period. In Lisbon, we have some mountains up in the north that, yeah, it's common to snow there, and some other places more inland that it's common to have some snow during the winter. Okay, but look, we don't have to use tires that are different for the winter, and or shoes. Like I saw someone buying shoes the other day that were for winter shoes and stuff like that. We just don't have those things in here. Yeah.
Yeah, you're lucky you, because you
Oh,
don't
but
have to.
then we don't do sport. We don't do winter sports. So
Yes,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right. So there's a pros
yeah,
and cons there, and I wish that I could exchange a good Portuguese desert with a snow sent back to from Sweden to Portugal, but unfortunately it will melt right away. All right, yeah.
it will definitely melt. It's like I was just checking the weather when we were saying that. It's currently 18 degrees, 18.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yes,
Okay,
that's great.
so
Yes.
and like I'm like this, okay, I'm
yeah.
inside the house, so but still there is no need, and the AC is off, and you're good. So that's
Yes.
the advantage. But it does cold here, to be honest. Yesterday was a little bit cold at night. I was just doing some errands at night, and it was a little bit cold. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's great. Someone already wants to visit Portugal,
Yeah,
thanks to
cool.
Tiago. All right, let's get started. So we'll share your
Yeah.
presentation, and yeah, The stage is yours, Tiago. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. So, yeah, welcome everyone. So today we're going to talk about governance. And some time ago, I was like, I really need to do a session about Azure governance. I was doing tons of work in consulting around Azure governance. I said, look, this is so important. I really think it fits here a session. And because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, you guys can't see, but there's like some stuff on the walls that it's outside focus here now. I was like, look, I really, really need to do a cool title for this. And then I just came up with this title. I find the lack of Azure governance disturbing. And to be honest, I think it fits really, really well because it is really disturbing for me to see big organizations without any kind of Azure governance. So let's do a short presentation about myself. My name is Tiago. And how do I work? I work as a cloud architect and advisor. I'm also a trainer. I also train people, not just to get certified, but also to get certified. But more important than getting certified is to having the knowledge and to know what are we talking about. Then I'm also the author of some courses that you can find online, and I also speak in some conferences. I was just last week in Copenhagen speaking at the ESPC. So that was just one of the speakers there. I work as an independent contractor, and basically I'm also an Azure MVP, certified trainer, and a bunch of stuff. So this is how you can reach me. Okay, so tiagocosta.com. So it's just my name.com. It's like super easy. And yes, I'm based in the sunny Lisbon, Portugal. So what is the agenda today? So we have really a packed agenda here, and we're going to talk about what is the cloud today. Just a little bit, what's the status today? Then two things that I just want to make references on because I don't have time to really go deep on them, which is the cloud adoption framework and the well-architected framework. But look, they're pretty important. Maybe we can have a session on those on a separate session because they are so big what we need to talk about it that they always fill a session by themselves. Okay. And then we have here in terms of governance, how do you get started on this? And we're going to start to talk about subscriptions. We're going to start talking about management groups. So kind of, the hierarchy of all of this. Then we talk about Azure policies, and then also a little bit about cost management. And I want you to get something out of the session now today that Monday morning you can just bring to your organizations and implement right away. Okay. I think it's 5 things, okay, that you can just take out of this right away. Cloud today. What is the cloud today? The cloud today is something that is very complex. We run millions of cloud resources. We no longer just run, Azure for just that department or just that small application that we have. No, we run this all across the organization. So it is massively important to make sure that we are okay with that, and make sure that we know and we can control everything. It's also multi-cloud. It's no longer just one vendor. That's the vendor that I selected, and that's it. Lots and lots of organizations are doing multi-cloud, so they're using more than one cloud provider, which I'm very critical on that aspect because sometimes I see customers using multi-cloud when they don't need multi-cloud. Okay, they just do multi-cloud because they heard about it and they start to want to do it, but then they bring more complexity into the game, which in the end, all the advantages of the multi-cloud, they are just not there. Okay, but for big organizations, sure, it makes sense. Okay, not saying that it does, because it definitely makes sense. Then, like I said, across business units, across projects, so it's all distributed all around this. When we talk about cloud management capabilities, I always like to show this slide, which we talk about not just governance, like you can see, just right here, but we also talk about configuration. We also talk about monitoring, protection, security. Okay, so all of this, it is something that definitely we need to talk about too. But today, look, we're just going to focus here on the governance part. That's the only thing that we're going to talk about today. But look, configuration, implementing Azure DevOps, GitHub, some DevOps tools, whatever it is, log analytics to monitor stuff, security, threat management, Sentinel, Defender for Cloud, protection with Azure Backup, Azure Site Recovery. So all of this, it's something that definitely you also need to do. Okay, so yeah, great stuff that we have here. Then what about that governance part? Let's just go deeper on this. So we need to talk about, policy-based management. So this is where we're going to talk about Azure Policy, so that I can force the, basically my policies to be enabled. I have a policy in terms of my company that says, look, we cannot have certain data outside some authorized regions. Sure, okay, let's build an Azure policies to enforce, okay, that. Cost management, let's never forget something about this, is that when we're talking about governance, cost management always plays a huge role. And we all know all the stories, or let's just rephrase this, all the horror stories out there about, costs that got out of control. But there are tools for you to be in control of your costs. So that's something that, we also need to take care. And there are also tools, for you to be able to prevent from costs to increase, and even very much control the costs the way that you need to control them. Resource visibility, when we have tons of resources, how do you find them? And this is where we start to talk about like tagging things, etc. And of course, subscription governance. Look, it's not because you want a subscription that I, as the cloud architect on your organization, will just give you a subscription. It needs to be rules for this kind of stuff. Okay, so this is cloud today. Then let me just talk about the CAF and the WAF. I'm a huge fan of the cloud adoption framework. And, what is the cloud adoption framework? It's just basically a framework that was created by cloud architects together with Microsoft to basically provide best practices, provide documentation, forms that you can just fill in, okay? So that you have something to help you to implement your business in the cloud. That's it. And this is a very high level thing. It's very much for cloud architects and the business to work together, the CFOs for cost controlling and for all of that. So this helps your organization align the business with the technical strategies. That's the last bullet point. It is great. We have several pillars, 7 to be more precise. If you see the first one is about defining the strategy. Okay, so that's where we're going. Understand motivations, understanding why we want to go for the cloud, business justification, and of course, maybe we have some projects and we want to choose, specific projects for this. So, and we have them in here. So, and we can choose that. So that's pretty cool what we can do with this. This is something that I usually sit with my customers, and let's just write this down. Okay, and I ask them, what are your motivations to go to the cloud? Why do you went to the cloud if they're already there? If they're not, they want to go. Why do you want to go to the cloud? So that's something that I always do. And sometimes I have customers like, oh, what? they get surprised, Like I was not expecting that question. Is just I thought that we just go do stuff. But no, we really need to think this. And then we plan, okay? Then we are ready. Then we start to adopt this by doing migrations, which is sometimes lift and shift. Even why not? Just that, so that we have some stuff in the cloud. And then sometimes let's just look at that, and of course let's modernize those workloads. Because if you just do VMs, yeah, okay, great, you're in the cloud, but you're not taking advantage of the cloud. So that's something that I really like, okay, to do there. And then within all those 4 pillars that we have here, we always have those 3 down there: security, manageability, and govern. That, in all of them, you always need to look for that. Security, look, it is a massive importance nowadays. I don't need to tell you that. I'm sure you read the news, you see what's going on in the world. This is not new too in terms of IT security. It's something that already came from like the past 5-6 years, that has been worse every day. 2022 is going to be the worst year ever. 2023, my prediction is it's even going to be worse than 2022 in terms of IT security. So more attacks, more sophisticated attacks. So we really need to protect ourselves in our organizations against that. So that's something that's always across the board. And it starts when you're defining the strategy. That's something that you need to put on your strategy. It's not something that you just do it when you're adopting things. No, from the start, you need to have a strategy for security. Okay, that's the cloud adoption framework. What about the well-architected framework? So the well-architected framework also comes with pillars. And we have a first pillar that is, for example, cost optimization. Okay. And this is pretty much more specific, for a specific, service. Let's just do this for, this workload that is composed with virtual machines, is composed with a SQL database, from Azure storage accounts, and some Cosmos DB. Let's just imagine something. So let's take a look at that, and let's just build that for cost optimization, for operational excellence. Okay, so operation process that keeps the system running in production all the time, or all. You have to define what is all for you. Then performance efficiency, which is when you have a system that it's getting a lot of load, will it scale or not? Because if it doesn't scale, well, you might have a problem there. Okay. Then reliability. Reliability, is when we're talking about a system that the system will fail. Look, it's invariable. It will fail. But the thing is, how does it going to recover from failure? How much time does it take, okay, to recover, and things like that. And then, look, this is the last one, but definitely not something, okay, it's not exactly the last. It should not be like the lowest priority, which is security. Okay, so Nikos has a question regarding Tiago's white cloud proposal. I also have a similar approach and would like to ask a question. Can we name a few scenarios where cloud should be avoided? Yeah, sure. Okay, Nikos, that's a great question, by the way. So the big question is, are there scenarios where you should not use the cloud? Yeah, definitely true. For example, if you're talking about like an hospital, and I have this for an organization here. They are a private health provider, and we have several devices there that the latency that we have for the cloud is just not possible to be used. Okay, because it really needs to have that very low latency that right now it's just not possible. Also, for privacy reasons, because it's medical data, and in this country, for example, there is no Azure data center, and there is a law for them that says that data cannot leave the country. So that's another reason why you should avoid the cloud. Not that I like it, okay, for sure not. But the thing is, what is the scenario there for those kinds of things? We use the private cloud. So we went with the Azure Stack approach, which is the private cloud, and they still have Azure for the stuff that they can use, the public Azure where they can use it, and they have the private Azure Stack stuff, okay, for their own things, because they want to still manage all their infrastructure as cloud. But those have those very large racks for Azure Stack, and they just do it that way. So there are just 2 examples where you can use that. But there are governmental agencies using this. There are military organizations using this. It's just a matter on how do you use it. Okay, so that's the well-architected framework. So what about subscription management? So let's go with the part of subscription management. And by the way, keep your questions coming. Happy to answer to them. If we're talking about subscription management, so what we have is a small definition on what is an Azure subscription. An Azure subscription is a logical unit of Azure services, where my Azure services will then run. Every time you deploy an Azure service, I need to deploy this virtual machine, okay? The service is the Azure virtual machines. Now I'm deploying a resource. That resource needs to be inside a subscription. You need to, first option is always, in which subscription do you want to, deploy this? And then, of course, the resource group within the subscription. It's a very easy billing boundary. And what I'm saying this, some companies and some organizations, they need to have a very clear defined how much money they are paying for some stuff, how much money they are paying for something else. And this is a very easy way to understand that. If you have, imagine, 2 departments in your organization, Department 1, Department 2. You create 2 subscriptions, you just put the resources regarding Department 1 in one, Department 2 on the other, and you're good to go. Yeah. And then you ask, what about shared services, Tiago? Oh, let's create a third one. How do you charge, the shared services? Sure. Okay. That is something that you also need to take into consideration. It's not easy, that part, to be honest. But I'm also not a big fan of creating subscriptions just for the billing layer, because then there are lots of concerns that come with this, especially in the infrastructure as a service world. If you have, for example, 2 virtual networks, and you need to connect them in some way, you're going to pay for that. And sometimes you don't need to have 2 virtual networks, and you just have 2 virtual networks because you have 2 subscriptions. So, because a VNet, for people that don't know, a virtual network does not span across subscriptions. So it is something that you really need to look for in a very, very early planning phase. Tags can play a huge role on tracking costs. So look at that, because you probably will just go around with just that. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And of course, then we connect this with a single Azure Active Directory tenant. I will answer the question, but just give me a second here. Okay, so if we have this, imagine that we have this Azure AD tenant, and we have that subscription that we have over there, subscription 1. Okay. And then subscription 1 is connected with that Azure AD tenant. I have subscription 2 that's connected with that. And I can have, tons of subscriptions that can be connected. But one subscription is connected with just one Azure AD tenant. One Azure AD tenant, as you can see here in the picture, can be connected with multiple. It can have, multiple Azure subscriptions. No problem with that. Okay. Now the big question is, how do you manage this? But before we go for that, let's go for the question. Can someone put me up the question that we had before? Thanks. How can you balance all the pillars of the architected framework? Oh, yeah, that's not an easy question to answer here just right away. It really, depends on the service that we're using, but we always need to imagine that if we want to have more availability of a service, more scalability, usually they come with an extra cost, because sometimes, let's just give it a proper example. SQL databases, you're in a tier that doesn't have availability zones. You want to go and have availability zones so that you have that extra availability. That's a tier that you need to pay more for you to have that feature. But that again goes against the cost management, right? Because you want to spend less money, not more money. So, balancing this, it is something that it's not easy to do that part. But of course, look, if you have the need for your application to have that level of availability, you have to go for it. There is no other way around. The thing is, you're going to pay more, sure. Usually, always my customers never like that idea. But what is the cost for my customers and your customers and your organization to not have that application available? That's the question that you need to do. If it is something internal, it's not available, it's bad, okay, now it's available again, okay, nothing serious will happen. If it is something that is very customer facing, and imagine it's a e-commerce, front end. Look, if you don't have that available, you're not selling. It's like if your shop, the door is not opening. It just does. No one enters. No customers get inside your shop, so you don't sell. And not only that, but also the reputation costs that goes with that too. The impact on that can be massive. And look, I'm sure everyone has examples of this. There was a supermarket here in Portugal that I was always going to that supermarket. One day they had a massive issue with their IT, and all the shops across the country, they were not opening, okay, because they had like, I don't know, it's a massive thing that they had there. It doesn't matter. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, in the shopping place, I was like, hey, just let me go to the supermarket that's just next door, because there's another one that I'm not used to go there. I went there. I found, cool products that the other one they don't have. And I was like, oh yeah. And I liked that too. And, I started to go to both. So they didn't only lost, that day sales, but they lost sales for years. The impact on this, it is massive. Only because, they didn't have a highly available system. Then of course that will cost more money. So you always need to balance this. But yeah, definitely, look, I'm not going to say it's an easy thing, because it's not. Going back here, so subscriptions. We have tons of subscriptions, and now we have to manage all this. I have customers that we have hundreds of different subscriptions. How do we manage this? We need to manage this as a group. Well, as a management group. That's the name that we use for this this part. So let's talk about management groups. It's a scope above, subscriptions that we have. And then we create this hierarchy that you can see here, okay? So I create here a tenant group. I create something in here, and then, you can create a hierarchy. That hierarchy, by the way, can be 6 levels up and down. So vertically can be 6 levels. You should create something that is flexible enough for changes and represents what your organization is designed today. Okay, departments or by regions, or how you see your organization, your company today. I said you should have it flexible enough to be changed. That's important, because it's very common for management come up with, hey, we have here a reorganization of our company, because times change, the way that people buy things change, and your company needs to adapt to that. So it is common. And sometimes people, oh, well, only companies that are in a bad position reorg. Our company is not. No way. Your company will reorg even if it's good or in a bad position. If it's in a good position, is a reorganization, it's always good, it's healthy for the company, okay? Or you just buy another company and you need to integrate the other company. There's always stuff, that you need to reshape the way that you do management groups. So there you go. Then you can target management groups to be the scope of policies of our back assignments. So benefits of this, logical representation of the organization. You can apply policies. You can do RBAC at the management group, and you can do governance over, the subscription. So with this in mind, let's just do here, a demo exactly on that. And I already have the Azure portal somewhere. There you go. Too many screens today. So this is my Azure portal. And if I go, for example, to management groups, well, this is my demo company that I have. It's called AZ Contoso. And as you can see here, I have this root group here. And if you see the root group here, so this part here, I have then another management group that's under that, okay, called branches. This is where, my company has, this demo company here, has branches all over the world. And we want to give to those countries a subscription so that they can, just do their Azure stuff there. Corp, this is where I run my corp workloads. Forget about this one here, okay? It's others. It's just other stuff that I don't know where to put it. I just put it there. And then we have this sandbox. This is where if I do some R&D and I want to play around with stuff, I just create subscriptions there, so just I can have a little bit more freedom in the stuff that I can create, but still under control. If we expand branches, you see, oh, I even have more, okay, here. I even have more management groups, so another level of management groups. And I have this divided here, okay, by big regions. Those are the regions in my demo company. If we go for Europe, for example, I see, oh, there's 4 subscriptions in here. And you can see let's just say the 4 countries where I have a branch, which is Germany, Netherlands, Portugal, and the UK. I need to create one for Sweden, okay? And there you go. Then I have North America. I have here some more stuff, and yeah, I can even go to the Asia part, and I have Singapore over here. Okay, so there you go. So that's my management group stuff. How do I do this? Imagine that I have this AZ training, Contoso training, and I wanted to move this to this sandbox that I have there. So you select the subscription, and then under the subscription, which is not like this. Sorry, I have to go back. You have to select the 3 dots here, okay? And in the 3 dots, you click move, which is not available. Oh, sorry, this one here. And you click move. And when you click move, you just need to say, hey, I want to move this to the sandbox, because this training, when I want to do some R&D and some stuff like this. There you go. So if you do this now, that subscription will be under that management group. What is the impact of such a thing? Well, if you have policies that are assigned, here on the sandbox, that subscription now is going to be under those policies. Like, you cannot create resources in I don't know, region X, Y, or Z. Sure, now you can't do that. Okay? Starting now, whatever is created. Okay, it will not limit you on that part. Okay, so there you go. How do you create a new branch? So you go to branches. Let's just say here, and let's just say I want to create here. I don't know, APAC. It's Asia, but let's just say APAC. So you put yourself under the branch, black branches here, and I want to create a management group under this. And so what I do is, I just click here, create, and you just need to put here an ID, okay? And I'll just put 1 to 5, for example, and then let's just say Africa. And you just create like this, like Africa, and you just click submit. Okay, and if you do this, this is a new management group that will be created under branches. They even say here it's going to be a child of branches, and it's really just this. It's really not that hard to do this, and this is like super important to do this. Do you change the management group hierarchy settings so new subscriptions are added to the sandbox group and not to the tenant group? Great question. I usually don't show that, but let me show you guys this. So if you are in the management group overview page, okay, under settings, you can define here what is the default management group for new subscriptions. And yes, definitely, I usually have something more than the sandbox. I usually don't have I don't use the sandbox for that. I have one that is really called new subs, and the new subs will be over it. Why is that? Because you can't do that much on those subscriptions. Got it? It's very limited, the stuff that you are going to be able to do on new subscriptions. I don't want new subscriptions to be able to do things that you're not supposed to. So I limit a lot what you can do over there until someone moves that subscription into the right leaf of the tree of the management groups. Got it? So that's kind of the idea. So we can even create that. I need that for my demos. So let's just go to this here. Let's just say, create a new one. And let's just say, let's call that 99. Okay. And let's just say new subscriptions. Okay. There you go. So now I have here a new subscriptions that will be under AZ root. This always takes some time to show up things here. There you go. New subscriptions. And now I can go to management groups, settings. Okay. Change this. And you just change this to this one here. Okay. Oh, yeah. I think I don't have permissions to do something like this, but well, you get the idea. I need to see because I think this user doesn't have the permissions for this. But I need to check that. Got it? But that's it. Great question, by the way. Okay, so moving on. We have more stuff to do, and the cool stuff is going to start now. Okay, what is the cool stuff? The cool stuff now. Let's talk about let's talk about policies. And if we talk about Azure Policies, I'm a huge fan of Azure Policies and what you can do with Azure Policies. But in a nutshell, Azure Policies is for you to create, assign, and manage policies. Let's give an example. And I have here some examples. I will get back to that slide. Some examples of Azure Policies. Allowed locations. I use this a lot. Like, we as an organization, we come up and we say only those Azure regions are the ones that I want to use. Sure. Okay. Let's just go with those. Resource types. I'm only going to use those resource types. This is one that I always talk with my customers and I always ask them, customer, what is the services that you're using today? If they don't know, we can query that very easily using PowerShell and using other tools in the Azure portal to get that. And we get the list of, the current services that they use today. And I always ask something that I can't query. I really need to ask, what are the services that you're pretending to use very, in the near future? Making that list, I'm going to do Azure Governance to each one of them. And when I say this is I'm going to look for, let's talk about storage accounts. Storage accounts. Okay. We're going to create templates to define how we create a storage account following the best practices. I talk with the company, I talk with the security team, I talk with the business, I talk with loads of people so that we as a whole define this is how you use storage accounts. It goes to the point of what's the naming convention that you should use for this. Got it? So that's the way that we do this. Then, why is this policy helpful on all of this? If, I will only say, let's give a proper example. We're only going to use app services, storage accounts, and I don't know, VMs. And of course, then you should have VNets and stuff like that. But let's just go with just VMs, okay, for my example. Let's just go with those. I'm only going to, in the policy, say I only allow those 3 to be created because are the 3 that I have defined the way that they should be configured. Get the idea? The other ones, we never did that definition. Let's imagine a real example. One of my customers, someone wanted to create a Databricks cluster. And I said, well, no, we never talked as a company how we should be using that. So you're not going to create that. Sorry. But they say, oh, but it's for, just R&D stuff. That's why we have subscriptions for that. Go to those subscriptions where then over there, sure, you can create that. Virtual machine SKUs. We all know there are virtual machines in Azure that costs like 10 euros a month. And we have on the other spectrum virtual machines that cost, thousands and thousands of euros a month, like really lots of thousands. So we're like, my big question is, those virtual machines that everyone likes to show off, that they have hundreds of CPUs, terabytes of RAM. But let's be totally honest with each other. Do you use those VMs? Do your company use them? Most probably not. Only a very few companies use them. And even those companies that use them, and I have one of my customers, they use them. They use them in very specific use cases. Most subscriptions never get near those virtual machines. So let's limit the stuff that you can create. And you also save money with this, because you're not going to have people creating those very large virtual machines. If you even limit the families that they can use, then you're in a very better condition in the near future to work with Azure reservations, because you don't have a spread of different families of virtual machines. You're more focused on, just a few sizes of virtual machines. So when you implement an Azure reservation strategy, that will be much more successful than when you have organizations that they are using, I don't know, hundreds of different sizes all across, the organization. Okay, so you can just look at this, and it's not easy to implement this kind of stuff. Technically, it's pretty easy. Business wise, it's not, but just another example of a policy that can be pretty useful. Requiring tags, enable Azure backup on virtual machines. Look, you name it. Let's go back one slide here. So advantages of this: enforce compliance. Like locations. I really need just to use some locations. There you go. Apply policy at scale, because then you can just apply this at the management group, for example, for naming conventions. Let's imagine you decide to use an Azure policy. Sure, let's go and implement this over there. Okay, so that's a big example of what we can do. Remediation. Okay, so that you can also remediate things. So I'm getting a question about any reason why Blueprint is not part of governance. So blueprints are, this is recorded, but let's go ahead. They're not getting any more updates for a long time. I would look at a proper Azure DevOps strategy and template specs, because they are, way better than to use blueprints, to be totally honest. Okay, blueprints, for people that don't know them, you could just define, just some Azure policies, some RBAC assignments, create a resource group here, deploy this template, and that's it. But to be totally honest with you, that's for ARB templates. There is built-in, then of course you could figure it out how to do it, but built-in, there is no source control for those ARM templates. There's no integration built in for that. It's only for JSON ARM templates. There is no support for bicep on that. So I'm like, yeah, not going to support that. No, I'm not going to advise blueprints anymore. And this is why I also not talk about blueprints anymore in my presentations. I used to, by the way, Azar, but not. I don't do it anymore. So just look at template specs, okay, and you will, and it's pretty cool stuff that you have there. So this is the policy dashboard, but before I just show you a picture, let's do another demo on this, and let's just see the policy dashboard. So you just need to search for policy, and when you do that, there you go. So we are here. This is the policy dashboard. You can even go to compliance here on the left. See. So over there on the left, and you have all the same thing, but just the dashboard. And you can see here in my case, in my demo company, I have plenty of stuff here that I have like 94, this is a great resume here. 94 compliant resources, but I have 78 that are not compliant. Whoa, this is not good. Not that bad. I've seen way worse than this, but that's not that bad. And you have here, a bunch of things, and you just need to figure it out. Okay, the policies that you have here and why, those are not being assigned. Let's just go here with, for example, this one here. So this policy assignment is called Allowed Locations Europe. And I look at this, and I see that, okay, I can view the definition. I will tell you, this is a definition only to allow the creation of resources in the 2 European regions, West Europe, North Europe. I look at this and I see, well, this is this resource here called demo PPG. Okay, if you see the location of this, it's in a location that's not one of those 2. And this is why this is saying, that this is not compliant. Now you have 2 options. You can just click here. For example, you can even view the resource. You have here, oh, it's a proximity placement group. Yeah, it's in East US. Well, you have 2 options, or you find a way to move this resource to one of those 2 regions, which in this case, it's not possible because there is no migration path for that. Or you delete, you recreate in the new region. If you need to migrate data, you need to find ways to migrate the data, etc. Or in this case, because this will be easy, because if you could move this from the resource group that's called AZ demo, that will work too, because this policy is assigned to a specific resource group. Okay, so could be another way to solve this. Sometimes it's not easy to solve this kind of stuff. Got it? So just need to pay attention. To that. So there you go. So that's just the just that part. Terminology that we have with policies. So we always have the policy definition. So that's the first part, that we have. With that, as you can see, I could just define, a policy myself if I wanted, or I can go and check the built-in ones. Then I have to assign that policy. So I can just grab that and just assign that policy. To assign, I need to basically select a scope. Scopes for assigning policies, okay, they could be management group, they can be a subscription, or even a specific resource group. So all those 3 are options that we have for this. If we talk about, Tiago, I want to create my own policy definition. Sure, a policy definition will be something like this. And as you can see here, I have some properties over there, like the display name, etc. Then I can have some parameters. Okay, and then parameters are like useful so that I can reuse my policy definition in some other scenarios, like an allowed locations. Okay, I have a parameter called allowed locations, it's an array of all the locations that I'm going to allow when you're doing an assignment of that policy. So you can reuse the policy, or else you needed to create one policy saying allowed locations West Europe and North Europe. And if you wanted to do the same thing, but now for East US, you needed to create another policy definition. It just doesn't make any sense. So you create a policy definition with a parameter, and then when you're assigning, you just input the values that you want for that parameter. The other part is the policy rule, okay, that you have here. If not filled in location, then, okay, the effect. And there are plenty of different effects. There is the deny. The deny really denies the creation of this. And with this in mind, let's just do now another demo here. What I'm going to do now is I already have a policy assignment running, and I'm going to try to create a resource that goes against that policy. So I'm going to try to create here, for example, a storage account. And my storage account is going to be created, okay, in this subscription that I have here called AZ Contoso UK. I have a policy assignment for this AZ Contoso UK that tells me that the resources need to be in one of the UK regions. So let me just put here a name for this and see the region. I'm going against that policy. If you go and you review, you will see that that validation that I'm doing on the top there is going to fail. There you go. And we click here. Why this fail? I have permissions to create the stuff. So why is that? Well, you see, was this allowed by a policy? You even have here the policy definition. You click on it, and you can see why that was the case. Because, this is the allowed locations UK. You go to parameters. You see there's 2 parameters selected. And there you go. Only those 2 are allowed. So you are, okay. Let me close the tab. Close this. Go to the basics again. And let me just change this, by selecting here one of the UK regions. Oops. UK. So let's just say UK South. And if you review now, you will see that the create button will be activated, but I'm not going to click the create button. Okay. But then it already passed the validation. Okay. So cool stuff, that I have here. Second demo. Let's go to policies here, and let's do a policy assignment so that you know how policy assignments will work. So, but for that, let me just go back here. Let me create a resource group for us, okay? And I do it in here, AZ demo, hidden, and yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. There you go. We have this created. Now let's go to policies. So let's do this. There are several different paths to do the same thing, but in the end, you just do the same thing. So I'll go for definitions, and I'm going to look for the definitions that I have here. And, the definitions, I have this basically custom definitions that I already did here. And you have then, okay, the built-in ones. There are more than 1,000 policies. So before you even think about doing something, check if there is a policy that already does what you want. If there is not exactly what you want, if you click in one of them, you see the source code of the policy. Sometimes I have customers like, hey, Tiago, this here almost does what we want, but it just wanted this slightly different thing. Just create a custom one based on this. The source code is here, so you can just adapt, this. You can just duplicate the definition and just go with that. So in my case, let me go for this, naming policy for VNets. I like this. I say, yeah, this is exactly what I want. Let me assign this. And when you assign, I can assign this, to a specific resource group. And I'll go for AZ demo SE. This will be so much easier if they alphabetically order this, but they don't. There you go. What's the assignment name? Okay, naming policy, VNets. I don't know. I don't like to do it like this. I like to do it like this. Sweden. You could put a description on this or not. It's up to you. Parameters, no parameters on this one. So let's review and create, and then let's then create this. And there you go. So I now have created this. Now this, it takes a while to really work in order to, show you the error on the UI. But if you try to do something now, it will be under that. But only usually when you press create is that it will give you the error. But it's already there. So pretty cool stuff that we have here. So if you talk about for policies via Microsoft Defender for Cloud, so those are, they have a special category in here. Okay. That's how you need to put your custom policies in that category, which is called, it used to be called Security Center. I needed to check that. But you just need to put them in the specific category, okay? You can just tell me later and I will tell you the exact one. I think it's now regulatory compliance, but I'm not. No, Security Center. There you go. It's this one here. It's there. Why is not here? Security Center. Oh yeah, there you go. Security Center. This is it. Okay. I was not seeing it. Okay. Yeah, they still call it Security Center here in the names of the categories. Okay. That was the old name for Microsoft Defender for Cloud, by the way. So now I know that we're like on top of the time, but let me just now show you something that I really want to show you, which is this. Just what are my top 5 policies? Definitely allowed locations, okay? Allow VM SKUs, enforcing naming conventions if that's something that you want to do, enforce tags, and the allowed services. Okay, sometimes, like I was telling you, look, you really want to do that bit of forcing that, so that's something that, yeah, definitely you want to do it. Just to close up, cost management, there are the obvious tools. Pricing calculator, Azure Migrate, all the migration tools have some cost assessment that you can do. There are like the obvious choices. One very cool thing that we have when we talk about cost is tags. Tags make you adding metadata to your Azure resources. So it's very common for me to make sure that everyone has a tag called owner, called department, called cost center, something like that. You can do tags to resource groups or to individual resources. Okay. If you do to a resource group, look, it doesn't mean that the resources will have those tags. It's different things. So you always need to do the resources themselves. This is name value pairs. It's super useful for billing. Why? If you just go and you just take the cost, okay, details of your subscription, you're going to get something like this. And I'm sure you can't read this, especially if you're in a mobile device, even worse. But even if you're in a computer, look, you're not going to read this. It's horrible. It's so detailed, so much information. So you really need tools that are be able to work with this. We have the Azure Cost Management, which is a tool included in the Azure portal. Will help you a lot. It's free. You don't pay for it. It's amazing. You can also query the billing API. Just go query the billing API, and build your own tool to analyze this. It's not the first time that I do things with the billing API with customers. You can do like really cool stuff. You also have Power BI. So with Power BI, there is lots and lots of things that you can do, and there is an integration for cost management even. So you just need to get data, billing from Azure, boom, and you connect with this and you get the data. And of course, look, I don't like to talk about third-party services during my presentations. I never do that. But there are third-party services out there. I'm not going to name them, but there is plenty of them that will help you on this. And some of them are pretty good. And you can save money by using those products. But of course, you don't need them, to be honest. So cost saving. Reservations. Look for that. Hybrid benefits with software assurance. Sometimes you can have licenses when you're moving virtual machines or SQL Server, for example, to managed instances and Azure SQL, that you can move the licenses from on-prem to Azure. And of course, you don't need to pay 2 times for that. Credit. Sometimes Microsoft gives out, credits because you need to do some project using a new service. They can give you out some Azure credits. Check that out. Regions. There are regions that are more expensive than others. Be careful with that. One of my customers, we don't have any problem using any region in the world. We can use whatever region we want in terms of, residency concerns. There's no resident concerns for the data that they have. So we can use whatever we want. Still, there are some regions that we blocked and we say we're not using this. Okay. So we did that, like Switzerland. It's way more expensive than the others. Like Brazil, again, same thing, Policies, I told you could save lots of money with this. And of course, do budgets. Create Azure budgets in the cost management tool is a feature there called budgets. And you can use that and you can save, again, tons and tons and tons of money with that. Okay, so just check that out. Some cost optimizations too. Monitor your virtual machines, your compute. Sometimes I have customers that they have virtual machines that no one is using them anymore. Check that out, and see what you can do over there. Consider using reserved instances or spot instances. Again, can save really lots of money by using that. Consider running workloads in different regions if you can. because there are regions that are less expensive. So why not? Use dev and test subscriptions. You have dev and test subscriptions that they can save tons of money, because you don't need to pay license for that. And if you're just building a development environment or a testing environment, you can use those subscriptions, okay, for that. So just check that out. Newbies is saying, are people using Azure Dev Test Labs to save costs? Definitely, because it's not that you just use that and you save money immediately. No, but the thing is, if you just want a development environment, for your workload, and then you just don't need it anymore, you can use those, because you just go there, I don't need this anymore, and it just deletes everything for you. So it's a great service, and it doesn't come with an added cost. Dev Test Labs don't cost a thing. It just costs the compute that you're running. So yeah, why not? So definitely something that you can also use, to save some money. Okay. And so I hope you enjoyed this session. I have here just some session takeaways. I always like to give you like something so that, Monday morning, you can just use this in your work. Create a naming convention when it comes to Azure governance. It is super important for you to name things wisely. And then with Azure Policies, you might even want to do this too. Implement Azure Policies to enforce tags. Start your Azure governance approach. Start to document things. This is what I want to do with Azure, and then just start to create some document around governance. Find dev and non-used virtual machines in your organization and kill them, okay, if you can. And optimize your Azure cost with reserved instances, with spot instances, because you might, also save really lots of money by doing this. So that's it. So thank you very much. My name is Tiago, and this is how you can implement Azure governance. And if you want to follow me, you can go to follow.tiagocosta.com. I have on that website like all my social networks. I'm very active, usually on Twitter and on LinkedIn. That's where I'm more active. So I'll just give me a follow there, or just add me. That will be great. And that's it.
Yes, thank you so much, Tiago, for the great and awesome presentation. I was literally taking notes and learning from your session as well, especially about the policies, and great questions and interactions from our audience as well. Thank you so
No,
much.
yeah, and
yeah.
there is so much more to talk about all this. This is
Yes.
kind of, just kind of the beginning of the story, because then there is way more to talk about on this topic.
Yes, I do have a few questions, but I think I'll reserve it to our after session Fika to keep our time. But do you have time to join us after?
Yeah, I can join a few minutes. Yeah, not that many, but yeah, sure.
We can take
here, right?
We can take a last question here from the audience.
Yeah,
just this one.
If you can modify a tag value once it's assigned, yeah, sure, you can. Definitely, that's something that is possible to do.
Okay, that's
great.
Good. All right. All right. So we are ending our session, but we do have our Fika after session 1. So let me just go ahead and share the link to the Zoom, which is a bit.ly URL. So bit.ly Azure Sweden Fika 2022. So it will direct you to Zoom after the session. All right. Do you have anything else, Håkan, before we say goodbye for today?
No, I think it's better we take it in the Zoom room.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, and most of all to Tiago. And I wish everyone a happy weekend. If you're not joining us in the Fika session, have a great weekend. Goodbye.
Okay. Yeah. Bye-bye. It was a pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you.